is history in the making. You're all witnessing greatness. It's better when the pressure is on us. Our backs against the wall, what we do gets stronger. And everything we earn, we deserve. It's nothing but blood, sweat, tears, and hard work on our turf. Still on top, we stay focused. Been running it for a minute now if you ain't noticed. Cause now is our time, it's all or nothing. So pay attention, cause them boys is up to something. From the proving grounds to top tier, we won't stop and they still mad cause we still here.
Welcome to episode 31, but the first episode under the new network, Boston Sports Zone, which we are super happy to be a part of. Today, I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Davish, and today, a special guest, Mike Dabate, who is the host of Locked On Patriots podcast, a writer for Pat's Country. Welcome to the podcast, Mike. Welcome, Davish. What we're going over today is obviously the Stevenson signing. We got a contract extension in the house. This time for a running back, so we'll talk about that, as well as some way too early predictions and awards to give out. Before we get into all the Patriots fun that we have to cover, Mike, Davish, how we feeling?
Pete, Davish, I'm feeling great. I really want to thank you guys for having me on tonight. A big fan of what you guys do here on Foxborough, fellas. Congratulations on this being the first on the new network. I'm honored to be the guest tonight to this inaugural episode. But all kidding aside, love talking Pats and can't wait to get into it, guys.
Absolutely. Davish, how we feeling?
Doing great. First off, thank you so much for coming on, Mike. Happy to have you here. Along with that, just doing good. Long week at work, but excited to get into the weekend. Looking forward to 4th of July too. Like, this is like after minicamp and before training camp is the hardest time as a football fan. Because you get like that one odd contract that, like, yeah, we have to talk about today. But outside of that, there is just no news, and you're just like, any future you were buying yourself out of, you're like, Colts to win the AFC South kind of looks good right now. Let me bet that. Just you keep changing your mind. So like stuff like that happens this time of the year as a football fan. I'm trying to get through that and just excited for the football season, man.
Absolutely. Before we get into football, let me raise it up for a second. Congratulations to the Boston Celtics, NBA champions, City of Champions, title town. You can go down the list. They hate us because they ain't us. We're catching a lot of flack for not playing a tough team. Everyone's hurt, blah, blah, blah. You know, show me where you finished up, and I'll show you where we finished up is what I say to that. But before we get into not before, but I digress. Stevenson, Ramondre, he signed 4-year, $36 million extension, includes up to $17 million guaranteed. That's per ESPN. The extension can reach up to $48 million if Stevenson can hit his his in-season incentives that begin in 2025. This contract runs through 2028. His incentives are around all-purpose yards. 1,400, 1,500, and 1,600 are his yard marks to get. Found it pretty interesting. They're 100 off each other. If he gets close, it's going to be hand the ball to him or pass the ball to him to get him his contract bonuses. Should be fun to watch that. Also, some incentives for Pro Bowl and All Pro recognitions. Let's just get into the question. Why are we paying a running back when there are so many other needs? And on top of that, running backs seem to kind of falter out right around the age that Stevenson is, right around 28. I believe Stevenson's 26. So are we going to only see him for the first half of this contract? In the second half, we see a declining running back. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Mike, why don't you lead us off?
Well, I think everyone looked at this contract from the moment that they saw it and said, wow, this is a great deal for Ramondre, without any question about it. He's definitely cashing in with $17 million guaranteed right up front, and that's going to be a situation where you're looking at now him being 7th in the league right now in guaranteed money among running backs. So that places him in a pretty high echelon. I can understand the concern right now that Patriots fans might have for paying a running back this kind of contract, especially when you're dealing with all of the guaranteed money. Like you said, Pete, this is a position that has been, I don't want to say devalued throughout the years, but there's not as much emphasis placed on running games as there have been in years past. We're seeing it kind of creep back in a little bit, and I will get into that in just a moment. But bottom line, there are, valid concerns when you're putting out this kind of contract for a player that is entering that kind of dicey area of his career where it can either make or break. What this told me that the Patriots are willing to do is, first off, it tells me that the running back is going to continue to be a very key part of what this team is going to do offensively. Alex Van Pelt, no matter where he's been as offensive coordinator, has always predicated his offense on a strong running game and a strong running back to be able to run it, whether it be Nick Chubb in Cleveland or whether you go back to what he did when he was in Green Bay. There's always that strong running back that facilitates a strong-arm quarterback, or at least a quarterback capable of navigating all areas of the field, use play action, open it up, and then take the deep shots down the field. We know Drake May can be that guy, but you need the running back up front to be able to do it. And this tells me that Alex Van Pelt, Gerard Mayo, and the Patriots Brain Trust believe that Ramondre Stevenson is that guy. You look at his durability over the last couple of years, it's only missed one game due to illness, which came in 2021. That was his rookie season. With the exception of him going down with injured reserve last year, he's been a durable guy, and that's unfortunately an injury that is common to rushers and to quarterbacks. High ankle sprains do happen. You can't shield a player from injury, but the resume on him right now and his track record shows that he can be a durable player. Patriots are betting a lot on that. Hopefully it'll come through for them. But to me, this only cements how important the running back is to Alex Van Pelt's offense, and they believe Ramondre Stevenson is the guy to do it.
So first off, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. Completely agree with you on how the importance of the running back position in this offense. The one thing that I found interesting is, generally they have incentives separated. They're like, oh, you have these incentives for rushing yards, this incentive for receiving yards, and things like so on and so forth. But I found that very interesting that they have the incentives as all-purpose yards, which goes on to show that they want him involved in the pass game as well.
Right.
And that is not something that's not on Ramondre's resume. He did catch 70 balls in 2022. He did have 400 receiving yards, had over 1,400 all-purpose yards. So his incentives are not something that are like out of reach for him or something. It is something that we haven't seen from him in the past. So that is something that is going to be very interesting to watch, seeing how involved he is in the passing game on first and second down, especially since our running back signing in the offseason was a third down running back specialist, a former wide receiver turned running back. So seeing or knowing that he is going to be that third down back, James White type role, how much is Ramondre Stevenson going to be involved in the passing game on first and second down? So again, I am not going to comment on the money at all till I see the structure of the contract split into 4 years. Because let's say he has 17 million guaranteed, but 12 is guaranteed within the first 2 years. I really don't mind that contract. That it's easier to get out of a contract. Like essentially a fourth year is like a team option at that point. Because so even though like those don't exist in football, like technically, but if it's a 1 million guaranteed to a 30-year-old running back, it is the team's option to keep him or not.
Right.
So will be very interesting to see the structure of the contract. I hate commenting just on total money. We have seen that plenty of times in the NFL. Cap is just a myth at some point. Teams have people that are there to maneuver it. The last thing I was thinking about Ramondre that is going to be very interesting to watch is since the 2021 season, which was Mac Jones's rookie year, Ramondre's rookie year, we have not seen, or we have not seen, it might be the wrong word, but the amount of outside zone that the Patriots have ran has been a constant decline.
Right.
Like from 2021 to 2022 and then 2022 to 2023, the percentage of snaps that we ran outside zone, even like, or any outside run, stretch plays from shotgun or under center have been constantly going down. And that is a forte of Alex Van Pelt's offense or that whole Kevin Stefanski offense. How good is Ramondre going to be when that is something that he's constantly gotten less reps at over the last 2 years? So that is something, again, I'm not going to comment on that right now. I believe in Ramondre. I've been a Ramondre believer, but that would be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing to watch, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Go back and take a look at some of the film on him from Oklahoma, and I think you'll see what the Patriots are seeing right now. You saw an awful lot of wide zone concepts, an awful lot of outside runs, and now what you're looking at is the Patriots stacking the offensive line to be able to block for that type of an offense. One of the things that I think is going to be key for the Patriots, especially maybe in year 2 or year 3 of this contract, if they hold on to him, is going to be the impact of Cole Strange at the guard position. Go back and look at some of the film at him on Chattanooga. This is a guy that was very capable of blocking for outside zone concepts, wide zones. I remember speaking to his coach, his Chattanooga coach, Cole's coach, Chattanooga coach, Rusty Wright, when he was first drafted, and he said that's his bread and butter. That's where he's most comfortable. And at that time, if you recall, the Patriots were rumored to be moving in that direction. They wanted to adapt more of an outside zone concept. Of course, that didn't end up working out. They just didn't have the personnel to run it. They didn't have someone capable of helping to spell Ramondre in that regard. And they really didn't have the personnel up front to coach it. Matt Patricia and Joe Judge were not the guys that were going to be able to incorporate that. Alex Van Pelt will be. So I'm going to look for that, and I'm going to look for that this year to incorporate that and see how they stack the offensive line in Ramondre's favor, because if you can get some of those looks that he had in Oklahoma, you'll find he is quite adept at being able to run that, but it's going to depend on how the line is going to be able to block for him as well. That's an excellent point, and I'm so glad that you made it.
Of course, and that goes back to the passing game as well. That one thing that both Drake May ran a lot at UNC, and we saw a lot from last year's Browns offense, are naked bootlegs. Naked bootlegs don't happen if the defense is not buying that you can successfully run the ball on the outside.
Right.
So that is, again, we are looking to improve on every phase on offense, because we'll get into the details of how bad our offense was when we go into these awards, but there's a lot to improve on offense. And I think this is a key step in that direction.
I mean, Stevenson, if you just watched the games and got rid of stats, he eye tests passed as one of the best offensive players on our team. You could just see how the offense revolved. Even last year when it wasn't exactly his best year, but 2022 is a better example of that. And I also think the Patriots were just looking ahead. If we don't extend Stevenson, who are we going to sign as our running? Who's going to be the running back on this team? And if you look at the crop of running backs that's available next year, it's terrible. It's just not a good crop of running backs. You got Clyde Edward-Helaire is probably one of your best free agent running backs. You got J.K. Dobbins. Ezekiel Elliott's on the list again, and we just decided to pass up on him this year. James Conner, Aaron Jones, I mean, we're really stretching here for some running backs that will be available next year. And some of those guys are 30 years old that I just listed, whereas Stevenson is 26. And like David said, if this contract is structured in a way where you don't actually have to keep him in year 3 or 4, and it's essentially a 2-year deal, and you take maybe a little bit of a hit in year 3 to move on from him, I am all in on this contract, because I think you need to keep talent on the offensive side when you're looking around going, like David said, this offense is bad. So keep your talent. Maybe overpay a little bit to keep your talent too, because it's that important to not look like a bunch of schmucks, like what we looked like last year. We looked terrible last year. It looked like a high school team at times. Like, we can't even throw you need to just keep the talent, maybe pay $3 million extra. The cap's fake, figure it out. Kraft should be willing to spend the money. He has so much money. Like, please, let's not talk about the money, even if it does affect the cap a little bit. Like, it should only be a couple million that's really affecting the cap, right? It's not like 10 million. We're not in this huge contract. So I really don't have a problem with the signing. Whereas I think a lot of people are looking at, why didn't we sign a wide receiver? Why are we paying running backs? Why are we re-signing a 4-13 team? It's like, well, because they're good players who are re-signing. Simple answer to that question.
And people that think that is an overpay, this is something that I just think Patriots fans are unfamiliar with this territory. But bad teams do have to overpay these players at some point to get above average results. A great example is Jacksonville for the 2022 season. They gave Christian Kirk money to be the ninth highest paid receiver in the league. Nobody thought Christian Kirk is the 9th best receiver in the league. They gave Zay Jones top 20 receiver money. Nobody thought Zay Jones was a top 20 receiver. But Zay Jones did get 800 yards. Christian Kirk did get close to 1,100 yards, and that propelled Trevor Lawrence's development. Did it cost them a little more? But that's what bad teams have to do to propel their quarterbacks earlier than later. So we are in that territory right now. It sucks, but this is something we have to do.
Division, that's a great point. And I brought something up similar on Locked On Patriots last month about the optics, the eye test when it comes to the New England Patriots. And yes, having to overpay a little bit or prove to players out there that we're willing to invest in our talent. If we bring you in, it's not a one and done situation. It's not simply a rental that we're bringing you in for a year and then we're done with you. If we feel that you're an important part of this team, we're going to invest in you, whether you're a rookie or whether you're a veteran. And I think that is a little bit of a departure from the way things had been done in the past. Mike Reese of ESPN pointed out today very eloquently that Ramondre's under contract this season prior to signing this deal for about $3.2 million. That's a very moderate salary for someone that gives you the output that he gives. Bill Belichick would have taken that in 2 seconds and said, okay, well, you're going to prove it on the field, and then we'll decide if you're worthy of this type of contract extension. Patriots are doing stuff a little bit differently. I think they realize that the lure of Bill Belichick, the lure of Tom Brady, that type of Patriots mystique that was there for so long is not going to bring players in. Now you have to prove that you're willing to pay for it. That's what's going to bring outsiders in or make rookies want to play for this team. The optics are a big part of it right now, and the Patriots are playing the game pretty well.
Yeah, we have a comment here, fan of the signing, short-term answer at running back, and the addition of Gibson will help. A healthy Ramondre will be good for sure. And I think that's absolutely right. We also have Gibson, right? And I think Divish brought that up with the all-purpose yards incentives. How does that come into play with Gibson probably being the third down back and Stevenson being the first 2 downs back? Although Stevenson can play on third down. So it'll be interesting to see the usage and the output from the offense. But I think we covered Stevenson. Let's get into our awards, our way too early awards. And the reason we're calling them the way too early awards, we're just acknowledging this, like Divish said, like, what else are we going to talk about here? So we're talking about the way too early awards. The first one up is Offensive Player of the Year. Who do we think is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year? I'll start because I don't want the Viz to steal my person, because I feel like we align a lot. Well, sometimes when we pick these questions, like we develop this agenda, right? And we don't tell each other what we're picking or why we're picking or what we're doing, right? So it's always a surprise to see what my co-host comes in and says. But I have a feeling he might try to cut me with a couple of these picks. So I'm getting ahead of this one with the offensive player. I'm going Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry is going to be your Offensive Player of the Year. And the reason why, I've brought data. So here we go. For 7 years in a row, a tight end has come from outside the top 15 to inside the top 15, thinking about from a fantasy perspective, right? Which isn't a bad way to think about, a player on an offense because stats kind of rule that. You're looking at Hunter Henry, who over, I think, the past few years has been underutilized, right? And in an Alex Van Pelt offense, I think you'll see a little bit more utilization. Njoku and Hooper, over the 4 years that Alex Van Pelt has been offensive coordinator, has been either second or third on the team in catches and yards and just overall pass catching on the team. Despite the Patriots really never getting to the red zone last year, almost like at all. I think I'm pretty much like the league's worst at getting into the red zone. Henry still did work. I think he got 9 targets and scored 5 touchdowns in the red zone last year. So you just give us a couple more times in the end zone and that 5 could be 10. And all of a sudden we're looking at a really nice Hunter Henry. And let's not forget the output Henry had before he came to the Patriots. Nobody would have questioned him being called a top 5, top 10 tight end in the league before he came to the Patriots. He comes here, doesn't have a quarterback, doesn't have a good offense, kind of falls off that map. I think this year puts him back on the map because we have a decent quarterback, right? We don't have the worst, one of the worst. We had 2 quarterbacks last year and they both were the worst, right? So now at least we have a formidable quarterback. So I think Hunter Henry really gets put back on the map. I think he really does good in man coverage. And I think there's lots of weapons, not lots of weapons, but there's like a variety. That's a better way of saying weapons. And so offenses can't just go, let's just shut down Henry and we'll be good. They still got to worry about Stevenson, Douglas. There's other names out there that they can't just stop Henry and call it a day. So Hunter Henry is my pick for Offensive Player of the Year. I think a good format would be let's discuss this pick and then move on to the next 2 picks and kind of go pick by pick. First of all, did anyone else have Hunter Henry as their pick, or was I solo in my Hunter Henry selection? David, you
I
have
was
a face.
between two guys, and one of them was Hunter Henry.
But you didn't go with him, I've sensed.
I didn't go with him. The thing with Hunter Henry, I'm very high on Hunter Henry going into this year. Going by the Browns offense last year and like the so-called breakout of David Njoku, people don't realize how young Hunter Henry still is. He's just been in the league for a while, but he's 29 years old. He's the same age as Dallas Goedert. And Goddard is still considered like, oh, he's still the best is still yet to come. But Hunter Henry is just somehow supposed to be this old, washed up dude. Outside of that, the big scheme from a scheme perspective, we've touched on this a lot. But when we talk about play action in that offense, in the Browns offense from last year, the reason the tight ends, both David Njoku and I'm forgetting the other tight end's name, but
you're not thinking from 2020 Austin Hooper.
Not Austin Hooper last year. I'll get back to him, but the reason the Browns offense was so successful was these tight ends were good at blocking in the outside zone run schemes, and they had the speed and agility to get chunk plays. And by chunk plays for a tight end, it's not, I'm not saying 6 yards, 8 yards. I am saying 18, 20, 25 yards. And those explosive, when your tight ends have the potential to create explosive plays, that opens up targets for your receivers, especially when your receiving room is not the best. So that is when I think Hunter Henry, I think he's going to be a key part. The reason I didn't pick him as my offensive player of the year is because sometimes there is going to be more attention put towards him than we think. That will bring targets to other people on our offense and make other people successful. But that won't necessarily propel Hunter Henry's counting stats up. So Hunter Henry is going to be a key part of our offense. But because of that reason, I just left him as the second player. I'll get into my first one later after Mike goes about his Hunter Henry takes.
I actually almost went with Henry as well. I did not go with Hunter Henry, but I've covered Hunter since he was a rookie in this league. I used to cover the Chargers, and I watched him come into the league and really adapt his own style. And don't forget, this guy's played alongside Antonio Gates, so he knows a lot about playing with someone that is at the highest level of his position. And Hunter developed his own style of play with being a phenomenal route runner, one of the best route runners at the tight end position I've seen. And also his ability to not only get open in the open field, but also his ability to block when he needs to. Hunter doesn't get enough credit for being someone that can block in an outside zone scheme. So I like Divish's comment about that. And Pete, I love seeing Hunter Henry get some love for what he does, because not only will he be a target in the red zone, but he is also someone, because of his route running ability, that I think could provide either Jacoby Brissett or Drake May, whoever happens to be the starter into this middle part of the season, someone who can be a reliable force. And also, let's not forget, we talked about the optics just a few minutes ago. Hunter Henry is a team captain. He's going to be someone a lot of people in that locker room are going to be looking to for guidance. They're going to be looking to him for leadership. Hunter is not the most vocal leader in the world, but I got the sense in talking to him last year and kind of picking his brain a little bit about how things were different in New England as opposed to what they were in Los Angeles. He wasn't really called upon to be that vocal leader in Los Angeles. There were a lot of vocal leaders in that locker room. Now Hunter realizes he's one of the elder statesmen, and I think he takes that very seriously, and I think you'll see that more this year. Because of that, he's going to let his play on the field do a lot of the talking as well. So great selection, Pete. I love it.
I'm going to leave you with this stat, and then I'll get into your picks. I really like you. You mentioned that the defenses might be focusing on Hunter Henry, and I think if you try to man up Hunter Henry, he'll beat you. So you do need to focus on Hunter Henry if you're a defense. Amongst tight ends, when it comes to man coverage, he ranked third, 77, or he ranked third, tied with TJ Hawkinson, and guess who's above him? Njoku, right? So that's a good group to be in right there, and it kind of makes sense. AVP, there's one of AVP's guys, right? Of that group, so the number one was Kelsey. I don't think that really needs to be said, right? Then you got Njoku, Henry Hawkinson, and Mark Andrews. That's the group that he's in. That's a great group. Of that group, he also led contested catches at the rate of 83%. So amongst the top five man coverage tight ends, he is the best at contested. So you are going to have to put someone else on him or bump him off the line. You're going to have to think about Hunter Henry. And for that reason, I consider that in my equation for who the best offensive player is. If you're drawing 2 defenders, that's huge. That is a lot.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into your picks. Divish and Mike, you said you were both in between Hunter Henry and another person, so I'm very interested who you decided to go with over my wonderful pick. Mike, why don't you go first, and then we'll finish off with Divish.
Well, actually, I had went with this gentleman before it was a big day for him, and I'm going with number 38, and I'm saying it's going to be Ramondre Stevenson. And for a lot of the reasons that we talked about earlier tonight, this guy is going to be the linchpin of what Alex Van Pelt wants to do offensively. He's still one of the better backs in the league at being able to blend a very stellar combination of finesse and power runs. I love the way this guy has field vision. He can see the entire field, and because of that, it makes him very likely to make his defenders miss, especially when it comes to situational runs. Divish, you mentioned that he hasn't been that much of a backfield receiver, but in this type of offense, I think he could see some targets, even on first and second down. You want to take defenders, out of their game, put them on their heels pretty quickly. Give Ramondre Stevenson a 5 or 10 yard opportunity to really put players and put opposing defenses on their heels. He can do it. He can handle it. He did it last year with the likes of Mac Jones and the likes of Bailey Zappi, with guys like maybe Jacoby Brissett, or hopefully at some point this year, Drake May throwing in the football. He can be a very effective weapon. And again, his experience at Oklahoma and running the outside zone concept, the fact that they gave him this type of contract extension shows to me that Alex Van Pelt went to the Patriots brass and said, this is the guy I need to help facilitate my offense. Get this done. Keep him locked up, because we're going to need him here, especially with a young quarterback that's going to need all the help he can get.
Divish, did he steal your pick?
He did. So
I could see it on your face.
I was going to say that, first off, Mike, fantastic pick. I think great minds think alike. But the one thing I was going to say with the Patriots offense is, like, when we talk about offensive principles and what makes a good offense, like every coach, like no matter what time period you're from, says 2 things: stay ahead of the sticks and keep the ball away from the opposition. How do you do those 2 things? You gain a decent amount of yardage on first downs, and number 2, you consistently pick up first downs. Simple. But here's where the numbers don't align with the Patriots. The Patriots last year were the 31st ranked team in first down success rate. First down success rate essentially means if you got 3 or more yards on first down. The Patriots were 31st. Only team behind them was the New York Jets, with Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson at quarterback. And when it comes to third down conversion rate, the Patriots were also 31st, only ahead of the New York Jets. When it comes to third down overall success rate, the Patriots were 30th, because that includes if you get in like 4th and 1 or shorter, then that counts as a successful third down due to field position. Patriots ranked 30th there. Only teams behind them, New York Giants and New York Jets. This is not the company I want to be in. And when it comes to winning on first down, that is where a run game and a hybrid running back like Ramondre will come in. I think behind an offensive line and a good run scheme, he's going to be so crucial for us to propel those numbers up. I'm not going to say we're going to be like a top 10 offense this year, but propel us close to the mean, close to an average offense, and put our defense in better positions to succeed as well. At some points, we've talked about this multiple times, that we don't expect us to win too many games, but the games that we are going to win, our defense is going to win us games, but our offense is going to support our defense to win those games. I think we lacked that offensive support last year. I think to change that, the first thing is it starts with winning on first down. And that is where I think Ramondre is going to be our key piece. He's going to get, I think, his first down touches after this contract too. I think he's going to have the most first down touches of any player on the Patriots through the course of the season. And I think he's going to be a very impactful player for us.
You might not even need to limit that to first down. He just might be your horse on the offense the entire season.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the defensive side of the ball since you two agreed so much, and since we've kind of covered Stevenson already with the contract discussion. I won't go first, so I have no opportunity to steal. I tried to cut Divish last time, and I didn't even pick the same person. So, Divish, you went last time, and you got your person taken. So, why don't you go first? Who's your defensive player of the year for the New England Patriots?
So we have a lot of conversations about who is our best players on who are our best players on defense. And the first two names for me are always Barmore and Gonzalez. I think those are our two most talented players on defense. And I think Judon, like, age is a factor, but like Judon's up there with talent as well. Mm-hmm. But for this award, I went with who's going to make the biggest impact. So from the 2022 to 2023 season, the biggest thing that changed for our defense outside of injuries were the turnovers forced. And I think with DeMarcus Covington taking over as DC, I think that a lot of those turnovers are going to come from the secondary. So I'm going with Kyle Duggar as my defensive player of the year. I think Kyle Duggar, I'd never expect him to be this hybrid nickel safety type guy. I think he's just a free safety or a linebacker. I don't think he works well at nickel. He's not the best coverage guy, but where he succeeds is tackling and being a ball hawk. And those are the places where a safety has the best chance of forcing turnovers. That's where you force your fumbles. That's where you get your interceptions. I think purely from an impact perspective, from game-changing plays perspective, I think Duggar is going to be a very impactful piece for us. So that's why I like Duggar a lot. We have a very talented defense. I don't think he's the most talented player on our defense, but I think next year is going to be the most impactful one.
I don't even think he's the most talented safety on the team. So, I don't agree with you here. I think Peppers is a duplication of Duggar and a better version of Duggar. So when it comes to the Duggar pick, I feel like I could have put 4 people ahead of Duggar that will be more impactful on this defense than him. You named 2, Christian Gonzalez, Barmore, Judon, Peppers. I mean, I feel like there's those 4. He's maybe the 5th most impactful defender on this team. Very rarely do I disagree with you, Divish. I disagree with you on your Duggar take. Mike, how do you feel about Duggar being the most impactful defensive player?
In terms of the most impactful, I kind of say I may be more in Pete's column than in Divish's column in this one, saying that I believe there are guys that are more impactful on this team, but I'm also not willing to rank him maybe 6th or 7th on that list either. Kyle Duggar is one of the most intelligent players on this team, and I think that's where you're really going to see his value. That's where his ability to make an impact on this team is going to be. You talk about guys in the secondary that are able to direct traffic. The Patriots have always had guys like that are capable of moving players around and keeping players in the right spot when even they don't realize they should be in that spot. Back to the days of Lawyer Malloy and Rodney Harrison, and then you look at Devin McCourty coming in and being that presence. Kyle Duggar has the ability to do that. Bill Belichick called him one of the most intelligent players at being able to pick up a defensive playbook for the Patriots, which is not an easy task. That is a very difficult playbook to learn. He learned a lot of it as a rookie. So Kyle is someone that can come in and simply with his intelligence can change the complexity of a game. So, Divish, I definitely see where you're going on that, and I think it's a good choice in terms of keeping Kyle in the forefront. And I do believe he's going to be playing with a little extra motivation this year, maybe a little added chip on his shoulder with the contract extension that he got, proving his worth and going out there and showing what he can do. But yeah, again, in terms of you're thinking of in terms of attacking an opposing offense or in terms of the statistics he's going to put up, yeah, you're probably looking at other guys on this team maybe being a bit more impactful. But you're not going to get me to say a bad thing about Kyle Duggar. I love Kyle to death personally as well as professionally. So good choice, Divish.
Thank you. The one last thing I'm going to say about Kyle Duggar is when it comes to success of the secondary as a whole, I think when we have a healthy Christian Gonzalez and a healthy Marcus Jones, the thing with the Patriots secondary, especially in most of the Bill Belichick era, was that no person in this, we had defensive backs. We didn't necessarily have, we played a lot of position-free secondary. And that is something, when we have the ability to rotate our secondary, that is where Duggar's intelligence comes to play at most, because that is when you need a ball hawk who can play at 2 levels of the field and either snap on a run play or exactly detect where the ball is going to go, read the quarterback's eyes in that way. And I feel like that is something. Yes, Duggar is a little dependent on the secondary around him being healthy, especially in coverage. But if he has that, I think just the turnover numbers and those things, the numbers that just pop out, I think will be higher than most people think.
Mike, who'd you have as your defensive player?
My defensive player is Christian Barmore, and I think he's going to build off of what has been a tremendous breakout season last year that allowed people to really see what this guy's capable of. 64 total tackles, 8.5 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, 13 tackles went for loss. And again, just the impact that he has not only on defending the run, but also defending the pass. And that's a common theme in the way I tried to approach these awards that we're handing out preseason is which of the players that are involved in so many aspects of game planning that it's almost impossible to imagine the defense or the offense or the Patriots, machine kind of chugging along without their impact. And Christian is so impactful in so many different ways. He was healthy last year, notable productivity on the field for the first time since he's been drafted. And it's not really a question, or it's not really a mystery as to why the Patriots defense did so well last year. It was because Christian's ability to push the pocket, to take the stand against the run. It made him one of their premier defenders. And I think it's going to be here, but one of the things that I question is his ability to withstand, not only to absorb the double team, but also to be able to push it back. When he takes two opposing offensive linemen away from everyone else on that offensive line and that offense, maybe a tight end, maybe two O-linemen, maybe a running back or a receiver getting in there and trying to block, when he's taking two bodies, that automatically frees up guys like Matthew Judon, like Joshua Uche to pin their ears back, get after the quarterback. It starts up front with Christian Barmore. This team last year, first in yards per carry, fourth in total run defense. It was a 4-13 season. Wasn't a lot to smile about last year in New England. Christian Barmore was one of them, and I think he continues that into this season.
Christian Barmore is a Foxborough fella favorite. We love us some Christian Barmore, which is a great pick. But I have the same comment about Barmore as I have about Duggar. He's not even the best at his position. Judon, I think, is a far more effective defensive lineman than Barmore is, especially being able to attack from the edge and the outside, whereas Barmore has to go through the middle. Very effective at it, right? Just the nature of the position, I think, leads to Judon getting more sacks, putting more pressure on the quarterback, which is exactly what Davish was speaking about with pass coverage, right? If you have Barmore and Judon attacking the quarterback, your secondary is a lot better for it. Judon's my pick for the most impactful defensive player of the year. Age is a factor. Davish brought it up, but I think contract is a factor too. He does not have one right now. He is in a major contract year. You brought up Duggar maybe playing better because he's paid. For me, I look at it differently. You're paid, fall back. You're good. You've already got your money, right? If you don't have your bag, you got to go chase your bag. And that's exactly what I expect Judon to do. When in 4 games last year, 4 sacks, on pace for 1 a game, that's 16, right? The year before that had 15 and a half, so almost 16. 17. I forgot there's an extra game in the schedule now, right? 12 and a half sacks the year before that. This man just gets to the quarterback in the Patriots system. On the Ravens system, he had sacks, but just not as effective. When he's here in New England under this, which is the same defense, we should see a continuation of a very similar defense. He's wildly effective. When we would think of a standout player on the defense in 2022 or 2021, we would say Judon, and I don't think we would flinch, right? He got hurt last year. We kind of forget about him. We see Barmore have a great year. We pick Barmore. We see Duggar get paid. We pick Duggar. I think we are forgetting about the best player, I think, by far on the defense, which is Matthew Judon.
Yeah, I think you make up a very good point on Judon and him being another linchpin, a guy that really helps to facilitate everyone else around him. And Judon has that in his game. Obviously, Barmore is someone that can take on a little bit more interior than Judon. Judon is purely on the edge, but you take a look at the guys that he's taking on, that frees up Joshua Uche to be able to get after the quarterback. Look at the season Joshua Uche had 2 years ago when Matthew Judon was playing at full strength. I think that's an excellent choice. You're never going to go wrong by taking a guy like Matthew Judon and saying he's the guy. I love it that you're going to go after and you're going to chase your bag. The one thing I will say about Kyle Duggar is every time we've spoken to him, he has a slight chip on his shoulder about coming from Division II Lenoir Rhine and hearing all of the national pundits go after him and saying he's Division II, he's never going to make it. Don't bother giving this guy any type of extra because he's not going to hack it. I think he takes that personal. And I'm not comparing Kyle to Tom Brady in the very least, but sometimes those types of slights never leave you. That's why I think there's going to be a little more fire to Kyle Duggar this year, showing, hey, you know what? You didn't think I was worth this extension. I'm going to show you why I may have even been worth more. Judon's got that fire, and I think you're going to see it this year while he's chasing his bag. That's a good point, Pete.
Yeah, I love the Judon pick. I think Judon's probably like, when it comes to the player on our defense that has the best resume, I think there's no doubt that it's Matthew Judon. Mm-hmm. The one thing I am going to say about Christian Barmore, or like the interior rusher position in general, is the value. There's the value of that traditional one gap defensive tackle has really gone down, because we have seen these two gap, like Mike said, these defensive tackles that can take up two bodies and still have some pass rush moves in them. We saw the type of contract obviously Barmore got, but around the league, the value of these players with Christian Wilkins, with guys like Justin Matabike, Chris Jones, teams are designing their pass rush schemes for these defensive tackles to be able to consistently take on two bodies. So I do like the Barmore pick when it comes to overall impact on the offense, but that is one thing that I would like to see Barmore before I pick him as a defensive player of the year candidate, is how much does his bag of pass rush moves take a step from last year going into this year? Can he actually, on third down, if we are lined up in a 4-man front, can he actually play the 3-tech instead of constantly lining up inside? These are going to be things that I am more looking forward to see from Barmore, which is why I think Judon is definitely a more safer pick.
Yeah. Definitely.
Let's get into Rookie of the Year. We got 7 rookies on the team. Who knows who actually makes the roster? My pick is focused on the positional need and how, if this player performs at a average to above average level, how impactful it will be for this roster. And my pick is Caden Wallace. If Caden Wallace plays left tackle and he is a dominant left tackle, oh man, did we just nail it so hard. I don't care what Baker does or what Polk does. They can have good rookie seasons, but if you have a nasty left tackle to shore up that left side of that offensive line, easiest pick of the entire season. If he's a disaster though, like, oh man, did I whiff on this pick, right? So I'm gambling here with my Caden Wallace pick, because I think the sexier pick would be Polk, right? The highest picked wide receiver. Drake May would obviously be my pick if I thought he was going to get a lot of snaps under center. It's like easy to pick the quarterback, but I'm going Caden Wallace. If he plays the left side of the line, even if he plays right tackle, he could have a huge impact on this team.
That's a great pick. Like, the positional need point was perfect, because I get it. It is a boom or bust pick, but not only will this, like, if Caden Wallace hitting his ceiling, which is like a cornerstone left tackle, if he hits that ceiling, our draft strategy going into next year's draft is completely changed.
Piece of cake.
We are not really, like, we're not even considering offensive line if we have a top 10 pick again. Whereas Caden Wallace being an absolute bust is if we're not even thinking about anything else other than offensive line in the first round, especially with what next year's projected wide receiver free agency class looks like. So great pick, like definitely boom or bust, but like sometimes you have to take those. So I like that pick a lot.
Oh, I love the pick. I absolutely love it. And I think that in so many ways, Pete, you've absolutely nailed it. This is a feast or famine type pick. If the Patriots have nailed this and he's going to be your starting left tackle, and they're able to effectively move him from the right tackle, because let's not forget, this was one of the best right tackles in this draft class for Penn State. They're asking him to move over. That's a very big ask. But if he's able to do it and he has the athleticism and the savvy to be able to pull it off, then yeah, this could pay dividends because this kid is a beast on the offensive line. Everyone I've talked to that's connected to Penn State could not say enough great things about this kid's work ethic, his athleticism, and his desire to succeed. And that to me is what makes a solid offensive lineman. The thing that always worries you is that it's going to be out of position. Can he make the transition? Does that mean that you're keeping Drake May off the field longer because you need to give a left tackle a chance to round into his position and keep Jacoby Brissett out there simply because he's going to be so important to protecting Drake's blind side when he does get in there? These are all questions that need to be answered, but Caden Wallace definitely has the talent to do it. And I'm with you. I kind of like what I see from this kid in training camp and mini camp, rookie mini camp. He's been good so far. Yeah, if you're going to roll the dice on someone, Caden Wallace is the guy to do it.
Did any of you also pick Caden Wallace, or did you go more wide? You did too, Mike?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yep.
For the same reasons that you mentioned. I just think that it's such a feast or famine type pick. And look, absolutely everyone's going to say Drake May deserves to be on this list. And look, if Drake May does end up getting a start within the first third of the season, then yeah, he probably will be your rookie of the year because he's going to be the central figure. But again, you need to make sure that Drake is not only ready fundamentally, but that he's well protected. And I like Chuck Secorofor. I think he's a hard worker, but at the same time, he's also someone that had his difficulties. He was benched last year for poor play at the right tackle position, and now you're asking him to come in and play the left. If that's the case and he has any difficulty with that transition, you're going to see Caden in that lineup, and that may mean a little more time for him to round into his position. You might see Jacoby out there a little longer than not. So, yeah, I did go with Caden for that reason, and we'll see. We'll see if we're right on that. But I can tell you from what I've seen so far in his athleticism on the field, this kid's looking good so far.
Fingers crossed, right? Divish, who'd you go with? Baker?
So I went with the easiest pick. So when I talked about the offense improving, first thing I said was gaining yards on first down. But the next thing was constantly picking up first down and third down success rate. And in the Alex, not just the Alex man, in any West Coast offense, your third down success rate comes down to your intermediate passing game. That is just how a West Coast offense works. And because of that, because of how high he was picked, because of his college resume and everything, I went with Jalen Polk. I think Jalen Polk is going to be, I think his closest pro comparison, I think a lot of people threw this out, was Jacoby Myers, and I think he has the potential to take that role as a rookie. Being that constant security blanket, getting the 12 yards, getting the 15-yard catches consistently, making catches in traffic, being strong at the catch point. And he's not the biggest guy, but he has a pretty decent catch radius, especially over the middle of the field. So all these things add up. If you guys want to check it out, Mina Kimes did an X Factor of every team in the AFC and NFC, and she picked Jalen Polk for the Patriots as well. And one of the things that she pointed out was the fact that our best receiver last year was Demario Douglas. And if Demario Douglas is consistently in the slot, if Demario Douglas is consistently in the slot and Jalen Polk can constantly line up at the Y, that brings a lot of attention, switches a lot of attention between Douglas and Polk because they're lining up constantly at the same side of the field. Now you cannot run heavy sets you have to run heavy sets instead of constantly running even formations as a defense. That opens up the X receiver position, which has been the biggest position in need. So dominating one side and constantly being able to line up on one side, being able to line up your best players on one side is going to be huge. So with Pop in place there, and Polk has amazing success rate running as the wide receiver, I'm very excited. It's both Y and Z. So I'm very excited to see Polk and Douglas on the same side of the field.
I think Polk's going to get the tread too to be able to put up, your rookie of the year numbers, because I think that's a huge factor when picking rookie of the year. Like, are you even going to get the look? Like, you can't pick Bell, right? Like, he's just not going to get on the field, right? So I think Polk is a player that absolutely is going to get the targets, going to get the time on the field to be able to be a rookie of the year candidate. And it's just a matter of, does he seize the opportunity or does he not seize the opportunity?
Yeah, great point. And you want to talk about guys with sure hands. You need a wide receiver with sure hands when you're instituting a new quarterback. And look, the Patriots are going to be doing that, whether it's Jacoby or whether it's Drake. And as they continue to develop a synergy and a relationship with Jalen, that's something that's very important. You're already seeing Drake and you're already seeing, Jalen really kind of hanging out together, developing that relationship. I can't wait to watch these guys in training camp to see what kind of chemistry they're going to develop. That's going to tell me an awful lot about how this team is going to operate offensively. Division, I love the pick. I love Jalen. I love the pick right from the get-go, and I think they're onto something here with him and going with that short-handed type of receiver that will always be there when you need him. Especially for a young quarterback.
Yep. Also, one last point about Polk, wearing number 1. That is aura. That is aura right there.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, we got 2 more picks left. We're coming up on time, so we'll run through them in a more expedited fashion. First or second to last one to pick is most improved player. I almost guarantee that Division and I picked the same person. So Mike, you go first, and then I'll let Division go second.
I'm going to go with an offensive lineman again. I have a reputation on Locked On Patriots of indulging my co-host, occasional co-host, Thomas Murphy, by talking about those big round men up front. So here I am. I'm kind of following in his footsteps, but I'm going to go with City So. And I think City had a tremendous rookie season. You look at, Pro Football Focus obviously showed him an awful lot of love. They graded him 71.3. They ranked him 15th among all guards in the NFL, not just rookies, but guards all time, all throughout the NFL. This kid earned a PFF grade above 80 in 4 of his 13 starts. So I think that should tell you that he's definitely well respected by the statisticians and by the analysts. But here's what I really love about City is his ability to play tackle, his ability to play guard. And I think if the reports are indeed correct, that we've heard from several analysts, starting with Dr. Kyle Trimble, who was a guest on Locked On Patriots about a month and a half ago, and said, from what I'm hearing on this looks a lot like a torn patellar tendon. And Mike Reese, the best in the business, confirmed that over the weekend. If that's indeed the case with Cole Strange, then I think City is going to be your starter on the left side, and he's going to have to move over and play out of position. But it's something he did at Eastern Michigan. This is one of the most tenured players in Eastern Michigan history, and someone who has not only the toughness but the tenacity to be able to pull it off. If he can do on the left side what he did on the right side, you may look at this pick moving forward as one of the better picks of the Bill Belichick era. That's how high I am on City So. I believe he's going to continue that, and I think he's even going to improve this year and be even better with a year of pro football under his belt.
So City So was my second guy. I went with the Homer pick. I think Pete knows who I picked.
I already know who you picked.
Yeah, but the thing that stands out about City So and why I think he's a great candidate for most improved player is the scheme change and how that fits him. Mm-hmm. He's an athletic guy, but the best thing about him is his ability to generate force fast. His power is through the roof. That is why that was like his biggest draft, like his prospect, I would say pro or a prospect trait, was his ability to generate power really fast. And that is something that will help so much with his athleticism in these, like we mentioned a lot, in these outside zone schemes, or just running in between the tackles. For both those schemes, the ability to generate power is very hard to find. That is something that you generally cannot teach. So all the technique that goes around it, that is where I'm banking on him to improve. And because he has all the tools in place. So Sao, great pick. And with the scheme change, I think he's going to be very impactful for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo everything you said and then just throw in he played left guard in college. So it's not like he's switching from right to left. He's actually going back home. One could look at it like that. So I'm very confident that he's able to bump over to that left side. And it's interesting that like Nick Leverett's also getting some tread at left guard too. I'm interested to see. And then you have Onwenu bumping back in the right guard and Wallace playing right tackle and Okafor. Yeah, so you got almost like 17 different. I'd have no idea where anyone's going to play on this offensive line, and neither do you. None of us do.
Yeah,
we don't. And one thing I will say about Scott Peters, he loves guys that can play multiple positions. He's going to try to move these guys around like chess pieces on a board and see what kind of sticks and where these guys feel great and how they're going to be able to perform. That to me, I think is going to be really interesting to watch in training camp. When the pads come on, that's when you're going to start to see these guys in their natural position. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And you're going to see them struggle too, because our defensive line is really good. The pass rush we just discussed with Judon, Uche, Barmore. I mean, the list goes on. This offensive line that's not, pieced together is going to get demolished, and we're going to start criticizing, but they're going to be fine. I feel like it's just our defense is really good. I didn't mean to cut you off, though, Division.
Oh, no, you're good. And the one thing I was going to say, bringing Scott Peters into the conversation is another reason why City Sao is a great pick, because seeing DeJuan Jones's development last year on the Browns as a rookie, as this unpolished, just a raw rookie who has a lot of power, but that has kind of iffy technique, and seeing him develop into the league so fast, and Scott Peters having a major hand in that, also makes me think how City Sao, or the vision for City Sao to be the most improved player.
All right, Divish, tell them why we picked who we picked for our most improved player. I have like basic points, and I just knew that you were going to come with some fire of why you picked this guy. I was doing my research, and I was between two people, but I think we picked the right guy. Go ahead, let them know.
So my pick, Homer pick, Go Jackets, was Keon White. So going back to last year, Keon mostly lined up as a wide 9 guy and didn't really get to play the 3-tech role that he played so much in college. When he's in that position where he's in the middle of the tackle and the guard, head up, or even head up on a guard, putting him in those positions, especially on third downs, is where he thrives the most. He's a bigger bodied guy for like your traditional edge rusher. And his strength is bull rushing. That's where his bread is buttered. And him not being able to or not having a chance enough to line up a little more inside, a little head up on these offensive linemen, kind of did not put him in the best position to succeed. This is something he's brought up in a lot of the press conferences going into like, oh, I think I've had these conversations with the coaches now and they know where I should line up. This is how Georgia Tech used him most of his senior season, and he was first team All ACC, got 3 sacks on Drake May in one game. So that is where I think Keon's going to thrive, when he has the option to line up a little wider on first and second down, use his run defense to his strength, and then still find a way to stay on the field on third down, especially with Dietrich Wise getting older, finding a way to staying on the field on third down and lining up head up on these offensive linemen with Barmore right next to you. I really do think like he has, like, tools were never a doubt for him. It was kind of his positional setup and all those things. And I feel like this is the year, with Barmore established, with a healthy Judon and Uche available to line up outside if he has to move inside, and then still having got the ability to put Gotcha or Dietrich Wise in there in the middle of the line for third down if you want to line him up out wide, and moving him around constantly. That is where I think he's going to succeed the most, and I think this is his year.
The reason I picked Keon White, and all those reasons too, but there was one reason that stood out, and it just, where is he in his development as a player? He was a tight end in 2017/18, and he transitioned to defensive line. So if you think about it, he hasn't been playing his position for very long, and definitely open to coaching and improvement. And that's one of the things that's being said about him. Belichick said, gets better every week, right? He kept it short and sweet, but his teammates, his coaches now, they're all saying the same thing. He comes in, he does work. Mayo said, watch out for him. He's added power and strength. Nobody's saying anything but You should watch out for Keon White, right? There was
Yeah.
10 games in a row where he just did nothing on the field. Like he was just on the field, but just completely absent from the stat sheet, right? And for those reasons, because of the leap that he can take, because of where he's at in his development, and because of how little he did last year, there's just so much room for him to improve because he's basically still a rookie. Like he didn't do anything last year, in my opinion. His one sack meant nothing to me, right? When he was on the field, he just kind of wasn't there, but you could see it. You could see he's almost there. He didn't get a QB pressure, but he was one step away from it, right? And so maybe those stats aren't so much anything you can see and more watching him and looking back and reflecting on his career thus far. That's all an accumulation put together into my equation of why I picked Keon White.
Yep. And when you talk about it, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to echo what Pete had to say. One thing that I love about Keon, and he was very close second to me picking City. I ended up going with City because of the offensive line, and I think the impact he'll have. But you're hearing Keon's voice a lot out there on the practice field, something you did not hear last year. Understandably, he's a rookie. He's not going to be a guy that's going to give you a whole lot of vocal, instruction. But he's instructing guys as to where they need to be. He's getting guys in position. Maybe some of that, what you talked about, Pete, last year, is he's almost there. He's right on the cusp of things. A lot of times when you have the opportunity to observe rather than be in the action every single second, but still on the field and still very close to it, it's a learning experience that's so invaluable to a younger player. Keon White, I think, is a phenomenal choice, guys, by the way. And I think you end up maybe being right when the season is over. He may be your most improved player. I wouldn't be surprised. I love what I see out of him, and I think a lot of Patriots fans will be.
Yep. The one last thing about Keon before we move into our a little negative award, but one thing about Keon, like Pete said, that his improvement as the season went on was also because he didn't really there's something we knew when we drafted him, that he didn't have the biggest bag of pass rush moves. But as the season went on, if you look at week 1 versus week 17, week 1, every tackle's pad level was a step ahead of him. And before he could even get up, tackle was on top of him. Whereas going forward in week 17, towards the end of the season, he was able to be a step ahead of the tackle, knock the tackle's heads down, so the tackle cannot dictate the pad level that they want to play on that pass rush. These are small things that you can only get by taking reps against the best tackles in the league. And now that he has that with him, going into a full off season, I think the bag of his pass rush moves is going to increase. I think he's going to do very well.
Well said.
All right. A somber ending to the episode. We're going to pick our most disappointing player, and then we'll give our final thoughts and get out of here. Most disappointing to me was a difficult one. I was trying to think about who the team has faith in that's going to let them down, was kind of like how I rephrased the question in my head. The player that the team has faith in that's most going to let them down is Okorafor. If you're really starting this guy that got benched at the right tackle position in Pittsburgh, and you think he's going to protect the blind side, I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know why they are putting their faith in him and why he's not the 6th lineman on the team. That would be something I'd be far more, and I would never ever pick him for it if he was looked at as the 6th offensive lineman on the team. But he's looked at as the left tackle, in my opinion, the most important position on the line, especially when you have a right-handed quarterback, which you do. So it's what are you doing? He's going to let you down. It's going to be a reason why Drake May maybe doesn't get in the game, is because you have no left tackle. Unless Caden Wallace turns out to be your player of the year and is a great left tackle. Then I take all of it back. But Okorafor is going to disappoint you.
Pete and I did not compare notes tonight, folks. I guarantee you that. I had Okorafor as well. Look, bottom line, you can look at disappointing players, and I'm glad that you made that little, introduction about how to choose these guys, because you're going to look at the roster, and most Patriots fans will tell you, oh, it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster or Tyquan Thornton. I'm not sure either one of those guys makes it out of training camp, so it's got to be a player that you're putting a great deal of stock in, that has the biggest potential to not live up to that hype. And I do think it's Chuck Okorafor, and you have to look at what he did in Pittsburgh. Like you said, He's a guy that was benched last year for poor play, and you're putting him into, and I think you're right, Pete, it is the most important piece of the offensive line. That left tackle position is protecting the blind side of the quarterback, especially with a right-hander. So if you're looking at someone that is not used to playing in that position, and now you're asking him to play an even tougher position, it's going to be very difficult. And again, I think one of the reasons why Okorafor is the guy on this list is because the Patriots really didn't bring in either a veteran or a true left tackle that they drafted that's going to be in there that's used to playing this position. I have a lot of faith in Caden Wallace, and that may end up erasing a lot of our negativity and a lot of our fears. But if that, for any reason, doesn't work, yeah, the Patriots are looking at a really difficult position. You're putting an awful lot of pressure maybe on a guy like Calvin Anderson that had a very difficult injury last year and is trying to come back with the illness, especially that he had, not just the injury, but the illness that he had. Yeah, you're looking at a tough position. So that was my choice.
Dabish, who'd you go with?
I think Okorafor was a great pick, guys. My pick for the most disappointing player is going to be Chad Riley. No, I'm kidding. He's not going to make the roster.
You can't let me down, bro. It stinks.
But so to preface my pick a little, it's not that I don't believe in him, and it's not that he's going to be disappointing for the rest of his time as a Patriot. I just think he's going to be a little disappointing for this specific year, just because of the injury that he had and what time period he had it. I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne. And the reason I'm going with Kendrick Bourne a little bit is he tore his ACL late October last year. The ACL rehab, his rehab's been on track, but he still hasn't gone to practice yet. They said they're hopeful he starts practice or full practice some point of the preseason. That does not necessarily say that he will be taking a lot of meaningful reps first half of this or for the first quarter of the season. Along with that, the role that Bourne was playing last year, being the Z receiver, being this reliable intermediate route runner, is one of the reasons we drafted Polk to be kind of that long-term wide receiver 2 type player. And when you have a healthy 22-year-old going into a season who was picked as the 37th overall pick with a chip on his shoulder, who has the ability to perform exactly your role when you are going into your age 29 season, coming off an ACL injury, I think fans that think that he could be another 800 to 900 yard receiver might be disappointed. I love KB, and which is why I'm saying this is not for the rest of his time here. Just for this season, I think KB is going to have a little bit of, I hate to say growing pains, but just like a settling curve, I would say, coming back from the injury. So that is why I went with Kendrick Bourne. I still love KB, but I think it is more of an indictment on his injury and what the fans expect of him rather than his talent.
See, it's interesting that you went that way, because I think his injury is a reason why he didn't get considered for my list. It's almost like, man, if he plays the whole season, that's a bonus, because I almost think that he's gonna get that's a person who seems like they get hurt, right? So I was almost like, man, if he gets hurt, that's what everyone expects. If he plays the whole season, he just outshines what everyone expected. He almost like doesn't have an expectation for me. So maybe that it's just what we expect out of him versus what we think he's going to do. I kind of don't have much expectations out of Kendrick Bourne, but I think he's a good pick because I think the fans do. I think the fans
the vast majority of the fans do. Yeah.
It's their expectations that will be let down. I don't know if my expectations will be let down for Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, I completely agree with Kendrick. Look, bottom line, when you have an ACL injury and you're trying to come back, you look at receivers that have had these injuries, guys that, have been in this system, guys that have been in, well, not necessarily the system, but guys who have been in this arena, this locker room, Gillette Stadium, Julian Edelman. You talk about Wes Welker. These guys have had injuries and then they've come back. They've always said that it takes them a full year to feel like themselves, and then that next year is when they actually do completely feel back to being normal. So yeah, I didn't consider KB at this point because of the reasons that Pete mentioned, because of his injury. But Division, I definitely understand where you're coming from on that, and I think you guys have a good point that it would be the fan base that might be let down, because I think people are looking at it and saying, Bourne's back, he signed a big extension, he's ready to come back, he's going to be our guy. Yeah, I think you'll see flashes of it. And look, there's nobody with a bigger heart on this team than Kendrick Bourne. He is phenomenal on the field, in the locker room, great guy. But at the same time, you have to be realistic about what he can do on the field, and I think that's a very good point to make.
Yep.
All right, let's get it. Oh, go ahead.
One thing or a good thing about Kendrick Bourne that we should always encourage locker room guys. So Kendrick Bourne, even for the optional OTAs, the first set of OTAs, that so if you are projected to be on IR, you're not expected to be there. So Cole Strange was not there. Kendrick Bourne didn't miss a single. He had his physical therapist in Gillette Stadium, so that he could be with his teammates. And that is something that like goes a long way. So yes, maybe because of the injury, his on-field impact will not be what most fans are expecting, but he's still going to be the same guy in the locker room, and he deserves credit for that.
Good point.
It brings us back to our vibe chart, Division. The vibes are very high right now in minicamp and OTAs. So we will see how we feel in week 1, week 8, and as the weeks go on, if the vibe check is still as high. Because my prediction is it will not be high once we're losing. But right now, things are great because we haven't lost a single game yet. Let's turn this into our final thoughts, right? We'll all give a final thought, and then if you want to plug your social medias, anything that you do, that would be a good time to do that. I'll start off. My final thought is the fact that people are talking are 0 wins on the table is delusional. I caught a little bit of a midday show that was the topic or the issue that they were discussing is 0 wins on the table, and I shut it off because it's not on the table. That's just not something that this team, what was the stat, Division? If they got like the 18th best offense last year, they had a shot at the playoffs. I mean, this team isn't that far away.
They would have made the playoffs. I think they would have been 7-10 if they had, or 8-9 if they had the 23rd best offense in the league.
Yeah, so I mean, like we have the 23rd best offense possibly now. So in the same defense as last year, I'm not saying playoffs at all. That's not what I'm saying. Don't misconstrue me. But what I am saying is 0 wins is funny. I picked the over already on DraftKings, already hammered the over on 4.5. I think that they could win 5, 6, 7 games at a great season, right? We'll go through the schedule more in depth as we know more about the roster, so we can have, a better conversation about it. But 0 wins, give me a break. Mike, what are your final thoughts?
Great point, Pete. And again, I think echoing off of the positivity that he's showing folks, yeah, it's okay to be excited about this team right now. Are they going to make the playoffs? No, probably not. Pete's absolutely right. But it's okay to look at this team now and say you're bringing back a top 10 defense from last year that I believe is going to be even better because you're adding Christian Gonzalez back into the mix and allowing him to free reign in that defensive backfield. And I think it's going to be even better than it was last year. I would also Judon definitely getting healthy. You get these guys back in, all of a sudden the Patriots defense looks a lot more fearsome than it did even last year. And the one thing I'll remind everyone about Drake May and Jacoby Brissett right off the bat is if Jacoby is the guy coming out of the gate, do not lose faith in Drake May. I don't want to hear bust talk or anything like that. I can tell you from personal experience watching this kid at Gillette Stadium, every single time he takes the field, mechanics get better. The footwork gets a little crisp. He's getting used to leading the shotgun with the left foot instead of the right foot. That's not an easy thing to do, by the way. Anybody that's played the position, I haven't, but anyone who's played the position will tell you that it is very difficult to do. He's learning a new technique, but he's doing it well. He's putting in the time. He's learning, and he's really using this opportunity to be a sponge from the knowledge he gets from his teammates and his coaches. Got a great relationship with Jacoby Brissett. Get excited about Drake May, folks, if you're not already. If he's not the starter on opening day, when he does take the reins, he is going to be a special guy in this offense.
Mike, where can the people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter, on X, however you want to refer to it, at MDABATE NFL. You can follow Locked On Patriots account. We are in a little bit of a vacation mode right now on Locked On Patriots, 3 shows a week, but we'll be back up to 5 very shortly in time for training camp. And then it's every Monday through Friday at LO_Patriots. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, Smash that subscribe button. And of course, all my written work where I cover the daily ins and outs of the New England Patriots on the beat is found at Patriots Country of Athlon Sports.
That's awesome, Mike. Thank you so much. I love the Locked On show. So I'm going to continue listening to that as soon as training camp starts, I'm going to be on it. But thank you so much for coming on. Going into my final thoughts, it's more on the kind of the gambling side that we were talking about, the like taking the over on the Patriots wins. I also have the over this year. It was 4.5. It's really not that much. But the one thing, or the one Patriots player that we talked about that I'm super high on once on his total touchdowns number for the year, we touched upon it a little, but Hunter Henry's touchdown total over under right now is 5.5. And I love the over. I love the over on that. I think our red zone success rate is going to go up. The tight ends involvement is going to go up. So that is one little nugget that I wanted to leave the people with. If you can still find, I think FanDuel still had it when I last checked, but over 5.5 touchdowns for Hunter Henry, I like that.
I like it too.
Okay.
Pete Davish, if you can give me just one more final thought, and I promise you this is just the final thought.
You can have as many final thoughts as you want, Mike.
I appreciate that. I promise you're going to like this one, and I mean this. This is from the heart. I sincerely want to thank you guys for having me on tonight. You guys are not only great guys, but you know your football. You put on a great show. It's entertaining, and it's always interesting, always informative, and you can't ask for more. So, folks, if you happen to be checking out this show from me, there probably aren't too many of you who are doing that, but if you do listen to Locked On Patriots regularly and you did tune in tonight, definitely make these guys a part of your daily or weekly or monthly Patriots coverage. However often they hit the airwaves, you will not be disappointed. Two great guys, and I appreciate your hospitality tonight, and I would love to extend the invitation to both of you to come on Locked On Patriots so we can do it all over again.
Let's do it. Let's run it. Let's run it back.
We'll run it back.
That's right.
And I'm flattered. Thank you very much for those kind words. It means a lot, especially coming from someone like yourself.
No, thank you. No, I mean it. Like I said, I mean it. It is sincerely and from the heart. And keep up the great work. You guys are doing great stuff.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's make that the ending. That's an ending we can be proud of. Like we always say, go Patriots, starting forever.